On today's show, after the Oklahoma City Thunder swept the New Orleans Pelicans, are they heading to the Dallas Mavericks next? We'll talk about that, and have the expectations changed on this season?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder, having possibly their expectations change heading into round two. Will they head to Dallas as history might suggest? And what questions still have to be answered for this Thunder team? Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I have a competitive side to me, and it's going to be fun to play Monopoly Go. It has been fun. I've already played it a ton. A level 1,000 for me in Monopoly Go. It's a mobile hit twist on a classic Monopoly game, so join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store and the Google Play Store. We're joined today by Daily Thunder beat writer, Thunder extraordinaire, franchise pregame show host, and appearing on the Ref. You've seen him everywhere, and you've especially seen him on Twitter. Brandon Rahbar, how are you doing today, Brandon?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back, Rylan. It's good to be back.
It's been a lot of fun. Every time that you've been on the show, it's been very fun, including when you called your shot on Case and Wallace. So I have to, every time you come on now, I'm always going to have to give you flowers for calling the Case and Wallace pick.
I did. I was all about Case and Wallace. I had him so high on my board. And so I'm glad that you have it documented on the show. Like we can go back and pull it up and be like, yeah, Brandon said Thunder need to draft Case and Wallace. I remember said that the one free agent signing they might make would be Vasilije Micic. And so
Shadow GM, Brandon Rahbar here on Locked On Thunder. Also, you can find him on Twitter at Brandon Rahbar as well. Brandon, the Thunder swept the New Orleans Pelicans. I think that we all might have picked the Thunder, in 5 or less games, of course, but I think that we might have done 5 as like a coward's way out of. It's very tough to sweep in the NBA, and so tough that, to put it in perspective for Thunder fans, that like the context that they can understand, for as good as this team has been in its franchise's history, and for all the great players who have played here, and all the teams that were slated to go do great things and make the conference finals and go to the NBA finals, this is only their second sweep in franchise history. So like it's very, very, very tough to sweep teams. What did you make of this overall series for Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it was really impressive. Even the Celtics playing the Heat without Jimmy Butler lost the game. So no matter how a sweep comes, it is impressive. Obviously the thing that stands out, Rylan, was the defense. I mean, they won because of the defense, holding the Pelicans to 92, 85, and 89 points. I get it. Zion Williamson didn't play, but this team is deep. They still had Brandon Ingram. Well, I mean, they kind of did. He was supposed to be out there, but Lou Dort had other plans. They still have Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Valanciunas, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Alvarado, Larry Nance Jr. I mean, this team was deep, but the Thunder just dominated them defensively. Lou Dort obviously deserves all the flowers. What he did to Brandon Ingram, to me, was the storyline of the series. Chet Holmgren protecting the paint. It was just tough for the Pelicans to come by buckets at all. And there were 2 close games. Obviously, game 1 and game 4 were close, and the Thunder made the big plays down the stretch. And then in games 2 and 3, when the Thunder's offense was unlocked, they looked like totally different teams. Like the Thunder and the Pelicans without Zion just look like different leagues.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the first round, Lou Dort is the MVP of the series, and that's going to not be breaking any news because Brandon Ingram's offense was just dead on arrival in this series. I love the, speaking of your franchise work, the nickname Glue Dort, which I first saw from Tyler Neal today. I'm not sure if he created it, but I did first see that from him. Fantastic nickname for Lou Dort. Stuck to Brandon Ingram like glue. His life is going to get harder no matter who advances. We'll talk about the Mavericks winning a pivotal game 5 on Wednesday, but it's going to get harder either facing Luka, Kyrie, or facing Paul George and whatever's left of Kawhi, but also James Harden. And of course, Russell Westbrook would make a return to Oklahoma City. That would be a crazy storyline, but he's still going to be up for the challenge. We've seen him be a playoff riser throughout his career so far, and 14 plus 4-game sample sizes, I think 18, if my math's correct. So he's been awesome. But I also think that a big storyline of this sweep was that the Thunder didn't play like their A game. Like they played a fantastic game 2 where they would have beaten anybody playing that way in game 2. But outside of game 2, like it was not a typical Thunder game. Their defense held it together and let them dig into the game. And eventually in game 3, got a big cushion. Eventually in game 4, took a 10-point lead down the stretch. But for the course of a 48-minute game, the Thunder did not have their fastball too overly often. I think that life gets easier in Oklahoma City, offensively, especially in the next round. I think that you're going to see, especially SGA, have an easier path to a more typical MVP level performance. In what ways do you think that this team can play better after getting a sweep in round 2?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think it's the offensive end. The Clippers nor the Mavs have a Herb Jones. I mean, they have some great defenders, obviously, especially in LA, but nobody like an Herb Jones. And then Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, they just have a bunch of long defenders that they can throw at Shai, that they can throw at J-Dub. And, they were dead set on trying to slow Shai down for a good reason. Obviously, he's an MVP candidate. It makes sense. But, of course, we see J-Dub ended up dominating a couple of games. Josh Giddey had a couple of really good games. Chet had one really good offensive game. So the Thunder can beat you in multiple ways if you're going to try to slow down Shai. And it's funny because we talk about like Shai being slowed down, but he still averaged 27, 6, and 5 on like 48% shooting. But yes, absolutely. Whether it's the Mavs or whether it's the Clippers, Shai is going to have a better series. I think we can depend on his 31 a night. Whichever team they match up with, J-Dub will have life easier. I think Chet will have life easier. So I absolutely think the Thunder are going to score more points because they were held under 100 points twice as well, game 1 and game 4. I don't see that happening whether it's the Mavs or whether it's the Clippers. The Thunder are going to score some points in round 2.
Round 2 will look very different than round 1 did. But in round 1, I think that the expectations might be changing a bit for this Thunder team. Before we dive into what this team can be, and if anything's changed for you, with this whole conversation deserves the caveat of no matter what happens in round 2 and beyond, this is a fantastic season already. The Thunder won their first playoff series since Kevin Durant was in town. They got that off of their proverbial back. They've gotten, to achieve so many great things, 57 wins, and the list goes on. No matter what happens, this has been a great season and a stepping stone toward the future for the Thunder. But now that you've seen how the bracket breaks out, we're going to get ample rest between game 4 of your series and game 1 of the next one. And you're going to take on an opponent who's going to play on Friday at minimum, and then the Tuesday turnaround, and could be playing on Sunday in a decisive game 7 after traveling again back to LA. Things have broken OKC's way. I would project that the opposite side of the bracket, Denver and Minnesota, will have a fierce series, which could impact things in the future too. Has your expectations for this Thunder team changed at all in terms of what you feel they can accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before the season, I said making the playoffs, I think, is the goal. Just making the playoffs. That's a step up from making the play-in. And I held on to that. Like, no matter what happened beyond making the playoffs, it's a success. Of course, they ended up being the youngest number 1 seed of all time. But I said that before round 1. I said, they made the playoffs. This is still a win. Obviously, they're playing the Pelicans without Zion. They're the number 1 seed. While it is still true, this is house money. They've done what they were supposed to do this season. Obviously, when you're the 1 seed, expectations do change. You expect to beat the 8 seed. And this team, as talented as it is, their expectations are changing, I think, obviously, as well within the fan base. The thing is, though, I think that there was a clear 5 teams that stood out above the rest in the West. And I think it was the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Wolves, and those 3 kind of separated as well. But then you had the Clippers and Mavs, and I think that they were a tier above the Suns and the Pelicans and the Lakers and all the rest of the teams. So to me, I think if you make the conference semifinals, if you take it to 6 or 7 games, that is a great result to this season. But expectations, I think you can expect this series to go either way. You can expect the Thunder to win a close one. You can expect them to lose a close one. I don't think there's anything wrong with Thunder fans saying, hey, they can beat the Mavs or the Clippers and make it to the Western Conference Finals. They're that good.
They are that good. We'll talk about how good they are coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at GameTime. Brandon, I think that the GameTime app is the perfect app for NBA fans because GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace for NBA fans, which makes getting playoff tickets easier, faster. Go there right now because prices on the GameTime app actually go down closer to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Go there right now because you're going to want to be in the building for game number 1 of the Western Conference semifinals in the Paycom Center. Right now, you can go check it out today because the app is reliable. It has last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, and GameTime gives you the lowest price guaranteed, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of NBA tickets, especially if it's the Clippers and you don't really know if Kawhi is going to play or not. Like that can still happen in the dance. That might make the game more interesting for you. Go there right now. Check it out at GameTime with the GameTime app. Create your account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. For $20 off your first purchase. Go download that GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Brandon, I think that with this team, you mentioned the preseason expectations. So in the preseason, getting top 6 was like, whoa, this would be a great season for the Thunder. It's going to be the toughest Western Conference we've ever seen. This is going to be insane. And then as the season plays out, it is the toughest Western Conference we've ever seen. Like the Suns, who are viewed as this just disarray ball club, won 49 games this year without having great health. But still, they end up being the 1 seed, as you mentioned. Then you go into the playoffs, and it's like, well, they don't have experience. There's the rebounding questions still from the national folks. And the Pelicans are spicy, and they got hot in the play, and like just win a first-round series. Then you sweep the first-round series and look not at all overwhelmed by the playoff stage, as all year long they have not looked overwhelmed. So each time that people put a cap on this team, they've bust through it, including last year, including this year. And so I think that they've earned the right to not cap this team. This team has proven all year long they're top 5 offense, top 5 defense. They've proven all year long that they're one of the best teams in basketball with 57 wins. They've proven all year long that their inexperience has not harmed them. And I refuse to believe that whenever this thing is, whether it's hoisting a Larry O'Brien trophy or it's going home in round 2, that the cause of them going home will be because of their inexperience and just overwhelmedness. And they've proven that they can handle playoff physicality, they can handle playoff basketball, they can handle the ebbs and flows of a game. Because as we mentioned, this was a sweep, but it was not like a 20-point blowout every single game sweep, and you didn't have to work for it. The Thunder were just disciplined enough. And in a closeout game on the road to do that as this young of a team, and a game where you go back and look, didn't play good basketball for the majority of it, or at least up to their standards, and they got the win late. I think that this team is just going to be more basketball mature than whoever comes next, either LA or Dallas. They're going to have home court, which is going to matter. And in a star-driven league, you not only have the defense to limit Dallas or LA in their scores, but you have the stars to go score. SJ's an MVP, top 5 finisher now 2 straight years, will be top 3 this year. We'll see where he falls. J-Dub, regardless of what labels you want to put on him, is a superstar scorer in the fourth quarter, as he has been this whole season. And so you have to like where the Thunder stand right now. Before the playoffs started, I picked the Thunder to win in round 2 over Dallas and then lose in 6 to Denver. I think that this team legitimately has a final shot. Now, that's not the expectation. As you mentioned, if this thing does fail in round 2, in the sense of you get bounced in round 2, this season is still an overwhelming success. But as far as what I'm going to allow myself to wonder what's possible for the Thunder team, I do believe they're capable of making the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I think so too. They have the talent. To make the NBA Finals, there's a few things. You need top-end talent. Well, the Thunder have a top 3 MVP candidate and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a top 5 player in the league. Like to me, there's no argument anymore. This is his second straight season of being a top 5 guy. He's a top 5 player in this league. You have Jalen Williams, J-Dub, who is like, he is on the verge of all-star talk. Like it's already happening. Like I tweeted the other night, like J-Dub's all-star campaign starts tonight. Like the way he's playing in the playoffs, he took his sophomore season to another level from his rookie season, which was great. He, right there with Paulo, if you ask me, for best rookie season. And he took the sophomore season to another leap. And now he's taking the playoffs so far, one series, 4 games, to another level. Like, whereas most efficiency goes down in the playoffs, especially when you're playing a tough defensive team like the Pelicans, J-Dub is still just killing it. So to me, the Thunder do have a second star in J-Dub, whether he's labeled an all-star yet or not. I think he is a second star and he plays like one. And Chet plays like one. Whether or not his box score, like his numbers, his points, whether they jump out at you or not, he's always locking down the defensive end. He's always spacing the floor, and he can go off for 25 any given night as well. So between this big three and then Lou Dort and Josh Giddey and Isaiah Joe and Wiggins, they are deep. That's the other thing you need. You need deep. You need depth, and they have that. They have high basketball IQ. They have a great home court advantage. They have a great coach, obviously. Like all the elements you need to win in the playoffs, the Thunder have those elements. Like the only thing that everybody keeps going back to is youth and inexperience. Well, they obviously don't let that bother them whatsoever. As Mark Daigneault said, they have a mature team. And you see that maturity on the court, the way they play, and you see it off the court, the way they handle their business. So to me, they have all the elements it takes to make a finals run. Whether they do or not, obviously, not saying they're going to, but do they have the elements? I think they do.
Yeah, you can allow yourself to stop making this be a Disney movie and make it be a reality of this team are contenders this year, which is scary for the rest of the NBA and extremely fun for Oklahoma City because this is going to be the worst version of them for quite some time as these players internally just get better. Forgetting about salary caps and forgetting about the salary space that you have, this offseason, forgetting about the draft picks you have in the future and all the moves you can make in the margins and also just overwhelming trades you can make if you wanted to, forgetting about all that. Internally, just if they just kept this group together and let them develop, you have not only talented players right now, not only players who have theoretical upside as every player does, any player can get better, but players who have proven that they have the work ethic to go get better. Shai has gotten better every single year, including after finishing top 5 in MVP. Not just statistically he's gotten better, he's gotten better like tangibly on the court as a better playmaker, as a better defender than he was last year. And he's gotten the accolades for it, of course, going along with getting better on the court. Like even Shai's getting better. J-Dub is clearly better from year 1 to year 2. Chet will get that same bump because these guys truly have that special work ethic. And then as far as this season goes, you list out all the weaknesses of every team in the NBA. You get to the Thunder, and as people who have watched this team play every single game this year from preseason all the way through and multiple times through, the Thunder have 2 weaknesses: rebounding in terms of the raw rebounding, advantages and everything, and raw rebounding numbers, and inexperience / age. It's not typical of young teams to get far because typically young teams are the worst team in the league, and typically young teams are not in the playoffs. Like we have not seen very many young teams in the postseason. The young teams we have seen in the postseason, especially young teams in Oklahoma City, have gotten to conference finals, have gotten to NBA finals. We can't really use inexperience against them because there's just not enough sample size of young teams in the playoffs who are this young and put in this position. And then with the rebounding aspect of it, to this point, even in the playoffs, they've been able to offset it or flip it to an advantage. Like even looking at game 1, that you won by 2, and the story out of game 1, as you recall, was about Valanciunas, was about rebounding, was like, yeah, sure, they won, but look at the rebounding battle for the Pelicans. The Pelicans netted 13 chance points. The Thunder netted 13 transition points, which comes from them being versatile, them playing quote-unquote smaller, and everyone being a playmaker and can push the tempo. So they dominated one category. The Thunder dominate the other category. You wash those out and start moving on down the list, and the Thunder were overwhelmingly better than the Pelicans in every aspect. They'll be better than the second-round team in every aspect. This team has 2 weaknesses. Most teams have way more than that, including the teams that remain in the playoffs. This Thunder team, despite their age, they are simply contenders.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And we've seen this team already buck history. Like the fact that the number 1 youngest team to ever be a 1 seed, the fact that they're the youngest team to ever win a series, the fact that they're the youngest team to ever sweep a series, all those things. So we've already seen this team isn't afraid to kind of rewrite history just because of their age. And they get asked about it all the time. It's brought up all the time. They know the narrative is out there, and I get it. Usually young teams don't win. Young teams aren't usually this talented. Young teams don't usually have an MVP candidate and 2 other like fringe all-star players in J-Dub and Chet Holmgren and have this much depth. They are just not a common young team. So yeah, I don't think that the youth, and the other thing is they just don't, they're so composed. They don't play like a young team, obviously talent-wise, but on the court, they always hunt for the best shot. They take such high IQ shots and they share the ball. And in clutch time situations, we've seen all these guys make big play after big play. The difference in games 1 and 4, I mean, the Pelicans were the more mature on paper, the vet team on paper compared to the Thunder at least. And it was the young Thunder making the clutch plays in games 1 and 4, those close games. So I don't think that's going to hold them back. We've never seen their youth or inexperience hold them back. So then you're left with rebounding. And well, we've seen that the Thunder offset rebounding in a lot of different ways. They attack, teams in different ways and use that disadvantage to their advantage. So yeah, I don't think, and look, they're either, if they were to beat the Mavs or Clippers in round 2, they're going to face up with either the Nuggets or the Wolves in round 3. And we've seen this Thunder team go 2-2 against the Wolves in the regular season. And we've seen this Thunder team go 3-1 versus the Nuggets, 2-1 when Jokic played. So I don't think this Thunder team is afraid of any challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Thunder team, I like to do the blind resume test of if you didn't know that they were young and you didn't know like what the preseason expectations were of like 44.5 wins, how would they be viewed? If you look at this Thunder team and watch them defend, you watch them shoot, you watch their prolific scores, you watch their coach and the adjustments that he makes and the rotations that he has, and his willingness to find advantages, you would think that this team can go win the NBA Finals. And so I'm going to continue to think that, even though the outside narratives might be a little bit different. Are the Thunder heading to Dallas? Brandon, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the big questions still have to be answered for this young team in the playoffs coming up. Brandon, we've played some media basketball games together, and we both have that competitive edge. You, of course, light the nets on fire from 3 and you're the best media basketball player there is. Right now, though, you can test yourself and see if you're the best Monopoly Go player on the beat. You'll have a tough time beating me in that department. So go there right now and go check out Monopoly Go. Check it out today because Monopoly Go is awesome. It's a mobile twist on the classic Monopoly game because it's hard to get everybody together and invest in the classic Monopoly game whenever we all have different lives and different lifestyles. So Monopoly Goes on your phone. You can team up with friends and you can do time tournaments together and work together to help each other. Or the more fun way for me is that you can go and build your own cities and pull off bank heists, be destructive to your friends' cities, and get the leg up on them. Go there right now and check it out today because Monopoly Go is the new and exciting way every day to play the classic Monopoly board game. There's always a new timed events to win and massive multiple upgrades you can do. You can win and you can rent and you can get in big money, most importantly, at Monopoly Go. Go download it now for free in the App Store or Google Play Store.
I'm going to clip.
Oh. Go ahead.
So sorry. I was just gonna say I'm gonna clip the little part where he said that I'm the best media player and send that to our group chat.
You should. And Brandon, to make it cleaner for your clip, Brandon, you are the best Thunder media member on the basketball court. Daniel, I know you're watching this and seething right now. You have a great post game, my man. But Brandon actually has heart, effort, energy, defense, stamina, shooting, and sneaky playmaker. If we let Brandon cook, he can cook. So Daniel, yes, you're a high usage ball hog. Yes, you're prolific in the post that nobody can guard you and stop you one-on-one. That's for sure. All around player, it's a team sport, Daniel, and it's Brandon number 1. The rest of the group, there's no one that can compete. Let's be honest. I mean, I know people getting their feelings about basketball and who's good, who's not. The rest of the group, nobody can compete with Brandon. Michael Martin is exceptionally good. He's number 2 for me. Daniel, I'm sorry, you're number 3. But other than that, no one can really compete. And it's okay. It's okay. We're talking ball, not playing ball right here. But Brandon, speaking of ball, as we got our little self-indulgence out of the way of our clips, are we heading to Dallas? Like, are we going to go drive down the highway and cover a Thunder Mavericks series as they win the pivotal Game 5?
We are going to Dallas. Yeah. I thought that whoever won Game 5 tonight between the Clippers and Mavs, it's always talked about how Game 5 is so pivotal if it's a 2-2 series. It's just so tough to come back from 3-2 when the next game is going to be in Dallas. It's hard to see, especially Kawhi, he's either not going to play or he's not going to play 100%. So I think it's going to be Dallas. Actually, I'm really, really positive it's going to be Dallas. And there is going to be a lot of fun to be had in Dallas. You got the whole Oklahoma versus Texas thing, obviously. And I think that previously when the Thunder and Mavs matched up in the playoffs, the Dirk teams versus the Russ, KD, Harden teams, there wasn't much animosity because everybody liked Dirk. The hot takes, I think, between Luka fans and SGA fans, and I think there's going to be a lot of hot takes now with this Mavs Thunder series. That's probably going to happen.
I think that you just hit the nail on the head of it's going to be Mavericks Thunder, I think, because you give Luka 2 closeout games. I'll take Luka in that bet. And I think they're going to win it in 6 probably, but if they go 7, that'll be cool too. It'd be better for the Thunder if they go 7, I think, just because of the lack of rest and playing a Game 7 on Sunday. But with this series comes a layer that I think will be so different and could produce a more tangible aspect of NBA basketball with Mavericks and the Thunder long term. Because even the Mavericks and Suns have a little bit of a rivalry. And there's no true crossover between those two franchises other than they played in the postseason. The epic Game 7 that Luka played to just blow out the Suns, even that spurred on a rivalry. These two fan bases, both internationally, all the Mavs fans around the world, including the ones that only like Luka, and the Thunder fans around the world and the ones that follow Shai, they have been clashing back and forth. You're living in such close proximity that it just bonds up a more strong, fierce rivalry. Oklahomans and Texans typically don't get along in general. And I think that part of the issue with ever getting this rivalry kicked into gear is, like you said, that the initial meetings in the playoffs happened a bit too quickly. Either no one cared about the NBA before the Thunder got here and you just jumped on board with the Thunder, or more likely, if you were an NBA fan, you were a Mavericks fan and you liked the Mavericks, but hey, there's a team now in the state, got to support the hometown team. So that didn't breed animosity. And like you mentioned, Dirk, there was just nothing to hate about Dirk. Dirk was and is the most likable superstar that you're going to see. No one could hate Dirk. There's nothing he did that was hateable besides be good at basketball. And even when he was good at basketball, you couldn't hate him for it. He wasn't a cocky, that guy that just aggravated you. Right. Luka is the nicest human being that is just so annoying on the court that all fans see is what's happening on the court in between tip and the 48 minutes. And in those minutes, he just really grinds on people. And so I think that will breed an NBA rivalry that I think is here to stay. And I think that this will become a staple of the NBA just scheduling and the NBA season. It will be a real rivalry now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think both of these teams are going to be at the top of the Western Conference for the foreseeable future for a lot of years to come, because the Mavs have Luka, Kyrie right now. Whether Kyrie stays long term and he's getting older, they get another guy to pair up with Luka, and then obviously what the Thunder have with Shai, Dub, and Chet. So the close proximity, and we've already seen the animosity starting a little bit last season. When it came to, all NBA and things like that. But really this season, the second half of the season, as Luka got into the MVP conversation. So there's this Jokic, Shai, Luka rivalry amongst fans, and especially the Shai and Luka fans. And I've seen it a lot. And I think this series will make it go to another level if it happens. And it's going to go even farther as these two teams battle it out over the next several years. So it's going to be fun. I think this is going to be an exciting series. A lot of talent, should be a lot of offense, and some interesting cross matchups and all those things like X's and O's. And I got to be honest, I like Mark Daigneault being in the Thunder's corner more than I like Jason Kidd being in the Mavs corner if it comes down to, like, X's and O's and things like that. And I don't think that Mavs fans would disagree with us on that one in particular.
Mavs fans certainly will not disagree. Jason Kidd will get coaches circles coached around him. Circles
coached around him.
Yeah.
Coaches circled around him.
Yeah, it will be just brutal in the coaching matchup. I mean, it will victory for OKC in that regard. And if you have the coaching edge and you have comparable, if not better, talent, at that point, you have to be the series favorite with home court advantage. I think that the Thunder, in terms of people who have actually watched the games and not the narratives, will be the favorites to win this series. What are some big questions that you're looking for? It doesn't have to be Mavs specific because we don't know for sure that they're going to win the series. But what are just some big questions in general for round two?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's the Mavs or the Clippers, I think that the Thunder's defense is going to be key because the Mavs obviously have a lot of firepower with Luka and Kyrie, and then the threat of lobs from Luka and Kyrie to their bigs, whether it be Lively or whether it be Gafford. And then with the Clippers, obviously a lot of firepower with Paul George and James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi if he's playing. But the Thunder's defense, as we saw in round one, if they keep that same intensity, if they keep, I mean, Lou Dort really does, small sample size given, but the two playoff series we've seen with Lou Dort, his already stellar defense goes to another level. And we've seen arrested Chet Holmgren go to a different level than tired, just got
arrested Chet Holmgren. Yeah. He was not arrested last night. It's okay.
Yes. Good call. Rested. If Chet has rest, as we saw, after the All-Star break, and we saw in round one, and he's going to get another week off. So the defense that the Thunder can play against both the Mavs and the Clippers, I think that's an advantage they have. I don't think the Mavs have that kind of defense, although they've been much better defensively. I got to give them credit, especially since they made those trades, got PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. They've been better defensively. And the Clippers obviously have good defenders, but they're defenders that are either hurt, Kawhi, or past their prime, Paul George, and have to take on a heavy offensive load. I like that advantage for the Thunder.
Yeah, I think that when you look at these next two series, the biggest thing will be the defense might give up, of course, a little bit more. They're not going to hold either team to 92 or less points. But it goes back to the conversation about rebounding and offsetting it with other things. Yes, the defense is going to give up a little bit more than 92 points, clearly. And the efficiency will go up for the other team, clearly. But so will the offense go up. Even whenever Luka was just dominant defensively in one game against the Clippers this series, you saw quickly that if he gets in foul trouble, he just cannot defend at that point because he's too valuable to their offense. You would much rather him give up buckets and try to get him back than just have him foul out the game completely. So that's whenever you saw, despite their 30-point comeback, they still lost as James Harden can get to the floater anytime he wants because Luka just cannot defend whenever he's in foul trouble. He literally just is not allowed to because he don't want to foul out. And so there's so many options, both with Dallas and with the Clippers, that Shai can get advantageous matchups. And even if those bad defenders want to try to lock in on Shai, he can very easily get to the free throw line on them because he's going to be able to beat them to their spots and get to his spots. And those bad defenders on the opposite side are just going to be incapable of guarding Shai, frankly. They don't have the length necessary to disrupt any of these pull-ups or to close out. And if they play too high on him, he can get right by them. There's just no answer for Shai in the next round. I think that this team is going to be able to win in round two with a playoff boost offensively than what we saw in round number one. One of my questions, Brandon, is we've seen Shai formally announced the birth of his child, does he get a dad boost? Fred VanVleet, anyone? Luca himself has seen a boost after childbirth, after welcoming in a child. Does Shai get a dad boost? Did you get a dad boost? Is this why you shoot so good?
That's the whole reason to have kids, Rylan, is to get the dad boost when you're playing hoops. That's why Daniel needs to have kids. I think that Shai timed the birth of a son to line up with a dad boost just impeccably. Heading into round 2 against either the Mavs or the Clippers, where the Thunder are going to need more offense than they needed in round 1. So yes, as a believer in the dad boost, well done, well timed, Shai and Haley.
Jerry Ramsey has children also. He didn't get the dad boost like in terms of raw stats, but he got the dad boost in terms of strength. I have to believe, like he can really throw around down there. He's a scrappy guy. Like Jerry's the kind of guy that like you want on your team because he's going to do the dirty work no one else wants to do, and he's gonna get underneath the other team a little bit, both literally and figuratively. But he's not going to break open a box score and send it home to mom, right? Like, but you still need those kind of guys. I think that's why you guys are so successful over the franchise, because you have Jerry Ramsey and because he's awesome. But big questions aside from Shai, aside from the offense, aside from the defense. I do wonder what the situation looks like with Mark in terms of adjustments in round 2 with Gordon Hayward, because you saw Gordon Hayward in game number 4. He was still his normal rotational spot. He was one of the first off the bench. He goes in, clearly does not have it at all, and only plays 4 minutes. And I think that is a change in Mark of like not giving him a longer leash to work things out, because we've seen that he just doesn't work things out. Like so far, he's not given you any reason to believe that things will change for the better, but there's no harm in still trying it. So I think that like game 4 is what you're going to see from the Thunder more often than not. Yes, you might see next Tuesday that Gordon Hayward is technically the first or one of the first off the bench for the Thunder. But I think that now they're in a mode where if he's not popping early, then they'll just pack in and go to Wiggins and move on. And that's what they did in game 4. I think that'll be a trend that continues. Like, what do you feel about Gordon Hayward right now?
No, I think you nailed it. I think if he comes in and he hits a shot or two and he gets going, keep playing him, ride the hot hand. But if he comes in and he's not aggressive and he's just moving the ball and he's not taking any shots and he's not really helping the offense, I think that they'll move quickly to Aaron Wiggins. We saw Aaron Wiggins play a lot of minutes off the bench. And this is obviously something that Thunder fans have been clamoring for. Like, everybody wants to see more Aaron Wiggins minutes. And I get it with Gordon Hayward. I really do. Like, the dude obviously isn't Utah Jazz all-star Gordon Hayward, but he was still putting up 15, 5, and 5 on decent efficiency before he got hurt this year with the Hornets. And I get that, theoretically he can shoot, he can space the floor, he can do a lot of little things. He's a vet. So I understand continuing to play him and see if it's a night where he can get it going. But I also like the idea that if he's not, then, give him the hook real quick, bring Wiggins or Isaiah back in, and move on, because we know that those guys are going to make an impact when they're in there.
And I think that one other thing about the rotation that could change is that the bodies might stay the same. Like, you might still play 10 guys in the Dallas series or the Clippers series, but their raw minutes will go down in favor of playing Shai more, playing Jada more, playing Chet more, as is typical for the playoffs. Like, as is typical for you to play your top end talent way more. And I think that they'll still swing in guys left and right around them, but eventually the minute uptick will happen for those 3 players. And I think that it'll be good for OKC.
Yeah, absolutely. The more those 3 guys can play, the better for OKC, both offensively and defensively. And like you said, the more competitive the series, the more you're going to play your best players. I mean, like, look how many minutes LeBron was playing, because they had to. He had, he's 40 years old, but he still had to play all those minutes to give the Lakers a chance. Luka has a sprained knee right now, and he's playing in the 40s minutes wise because they have to. They're in a competitive series. The Thunder had the luxury of, they won game 1, and then game 2 and 3 were blowouts. So they had a cushion there. I mean, you can play your guys, and they want to play their guys, and they trust their guys. They trust their depth. They trust all those guys. But if we see the Thunder Clippers, Thunder Mavs, I think both of those opponents are going to make a more competitive series. Obviously, we all know that. So I do think that you see a minutes bump for the Thunder's best players at the top.
Brandon, get ready to learn I-35, buddy. Anything you want to plug or anything before we get out of here?
No, I actually just want to plug Rylan. You're killing it on the show. You do it every day. You put out great content. So I will use my plug to give you kudos, man. You're doing a great job, bud.
I really appreciate that. It genuinely means a lot, especially from someone like you. And this is why I'm going to, one, clip that first and foremost. But number two, this is why you are by far known as the nicest person on the Thunder beat, which is the perfect reputation to have and the one that we should all strive for. So, Brandon, I'll plug it for you. Check out dailythunder.com. Check it out, especially during the playoffs with all the great stuff that you're putting out. Check out @BrandonRahbar on Twitter. Check out the franchise and the Raf, everything that you do on there. Brandon, thanks for joining us. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.